I am just now learning about this story that y'all are hearing about right now. But when I saw it and I read some of the details, I said, am I reading about Brock Turner again? Like, is he in trouble again for the same thing that he was in trouble for a couple years ago? But it turns out what I read about was not about Brock Turner, but about this individual by the name of Bowen Turner. Now, here's the thing. Pay attention. Their names almost sounded like, even down to the last name. His name begins with a B. Brock Turner's name begins with a B. They're both last names are Turner. They are both around the same age. Well, at least at the time when Brock Turner did what he did, he was around that same age. Brock Turner is like probably in his early 20s now. But this guy is 19, which was around the same age that Brock Turner did what he did. And they both, well, his situation was violation of another human being. I'll just put it like that. Just like Brock Turner's was. And just like Brock Turner, he got a slap on the wrist as well because a judge was very lenient on him. Like, when I read the article, it's eerie how similar these stories are, but it brings to light a point that I have been talking about on my channel for quite some time when it comes to PC and their code against each other. Now, we all know how they are when they get on code against us. We already know. But one thing a lot of people don't like to dissect is how PC gets on code against each other. They will throw their own under the bus and then try to be and then turn into the most hypocritical people on the planet. When what they threw their own under the bus for, they'll try to get you for doing the same thing, or if you even attempt to do it to them. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article. A teenage pervert, and that's putting it lightly, whose father works for the local DA avoided jail for an alleged sex attack thanks to a plea deal which saw his crimes downgraded to assault and battery. Now look at that. They said his dad worked for the DA. Now that's another similarity between Brock Turner and Bowen Turner, because I don't think Brock Turner's dad worked with the DA, but he has some connections to Judge Aaron Persky, who we know was the judge that gave Brock Turner the slap on the wrist. And remember what his dad said, don't throw his life away for 20 minutes of pleasure. I didn't know that sexual assault in violation of another human being was considered pleasure. I said that should have made people look into his dad right then and there when he said that, which means he probably has engaged in that kind of act in his lifetime, whether around the age he was then or younger, around the age of his son. Victims of Bowen Turner, age 19, say they're appalled he only received a slap on the wrist from the Orangeburg County Judge Mark Lee Dennis last week after admitting to assaulting pastor's daughter Chloe Bess in 2019. He was able to strike the deal and avoid jail because he was a juvenile when the crime was committed. And I'm sure they had to think of his future. You know, the usual spill. Turner was also accused of raping a second victim, 18-year-old Dallas Stoller, who died suddenly in November 2021. Now, I got a question. If y'all remember when Nate Parker was promoting his Birth of a Nation movie and all that stuff came up about what he allegedly did back in college, which turned out to not even be alleged because he was found not guilty, which to me, I don't think he did it. But remember when the alleged victim had committed suicide years later and how many people saying, oh, she killed herself because of all the distraught she faced because of what happened? And I'm going to be honest, I truly believe she lied or at least embellished the hell out of her story. But is anyone going to come after him for her committing suicide? No, I'm not going to say committing suicide because we don't know how she died. They just said she died suddenly. But let's hypothetically say she committed suicide. Are they going to come after him the same way they came after Nate Parker? Because for all we know, she could have took herself out because of the trauma that she faced at the hands of him. And this was a whole lot more recent than what the alleged victim of Nate Parker and his friend did. Because remember, they said she committed suicide in 2012, and what allegedly happened between her and Nate Parker happened in the early 2000s. I'm talking about at the turn of the century. Are they going to do the same thing with him or nah? My guess is nah. Let me continue. That charge against the teenage sex pest was subsequently dropped, and Turner was accused of a third rape in a separate county, although those charges were dropped too. So this guy has multiple violation charges against him, and every last one of them were dropped. Every last one of them. And all of the crimes in which he committed were against other white females. Now, what's crazy is, what's his name? Dirty Dick Danny, as I like to call him, Daniel Holtzclaw. He committed his crimes against a bunch of black females. And what's amazing about that, which still kind of shocks people, is the fact that he actually got found guilty of said crimes and was sentenced to pretty much the rest of his life, 213 years. But then again, who's counting? Probably him. Bess, who agreed to be identified as Turner's victim, bravely spoke out to condemn his sentence, and she blasted her attackers 50 breaches of his home arrest bond conditions, which saw him break the rules to go golfing, visit a Brazilian steakhouse, and even travel out of state to visit a car dealership. So this guy had probationaries on him. It says 50 breaches of 50 breaches of his home arrest bond conditions. Literally, this guy has every privilege in the world and he does not care, and they're constantly letting him off the hook. But like I said, I'm gonna get to my point at the end. Turner's father, Walt, works as an investigator for South Carolina First Circuit solicitor David Pascoe. Fitz News reported that meant the case was handed over to Second Circuit solicitor Bill Weeks. There's no proof of impropriety, but locals say it has uncomfortable echoes of the scandal-ridden Murdaugh family. Their multiple alleged crimes and involvement in at least 3 deaths were covered up thanks to powerful connections within the South Carolina legal community. Turner, initially charged with sexual misconduct, entered a plea deal with the prosecution on Friday. He was ultimately convicted of assault and battery and handed probation. Turner was given the easy sentence because he was a juvenile at the time of the attack. A second woman named Dallas Stoller, who he was accused of molesting in October 2018, died suddenly in November 2021 before Turner could be tried on her allegations. They may need to look into that, because I'm not saying if it is, if it isn't, but with all the connections they have down there, I wouldn't be surprised if someone paid a little something to have, well, you know. That meant the charges in that case were dropped after the court decreed that Turner had the legal right to face down his accuser. Stoller's grieving family have since spoken out to condemn Turner's behavior in the light sentence he received. A third sex charge filed against the depraved teen separately was later dropped, with no details of those allegations emerging. And because Turner was sentenced as a juvenile, will not have to register as a sex offender unless he commits another assault within 5 years. But something tells me with all the skating he's done, he'll slip through that too. Even more shockingly, as if everything I haven't read wasn't so shocking enough, the arrogant deviant was allowed to walk free despite repeatedly violating the terms of his house arrest while awaiting trial. Turner went golfing, visited a Brazilian steakhouse, and even went out of state to visit a car showroom in Georgia in clear breach of his bond conditions. Bess, who said she was raped by Turner at a pawn house party, decried his laughable sentence, saying she waited 3 years for justice she never received. I'm extremely disappointed. I feel like no matter what we say, it falls on deaf ears. She said at a press conference after the sentencing, "This feels defeating, but I will not be defeated." She waived the usual anonymity granted by the press to victims of sex attacks to share her outrage. At the time he attacked Bess, Turner was on bond for allegedly raping and beating an 18-year-old Dallas Hayer Stoller in October 2018. Bamberg County dismissed the first-degree sexual assault and battery charges against Turner in connection to Stoller's claims following her death in December. The fact that the defendant is going to walk free today and our sister is never going to walk the earth again. Stoller's sister's Brett Tabatabai, I'm guessing that's how you pronounce her name, said after his sentencing, "We feel like not only her voice was stolen, but ours too." A third victim in Calhoun County also brought up rape claims against Turner, but the SC Law Enforcement Division did not proceed with criminal charges. Turner, this guy literally has the most whitest of white privilege I think I have ever read about on my channel. And I've come across quite a bit. Turner's criminal record will likely be expunged despite his over 50 house arrest violations, Sarah Ford, an attorney for Bess and Stoller's family, said. Mainly because they couldn't get him on any of those charges, and that's most likely why. Court records state that Turner violated the measure to go to golf courses, a Brazilian steakhouse, several other restaurants, sports goods stores, and even went out of state to Georgia to go car shopping. There have been an issue after issue with this case. He's ignored court order after court order, and his victims have been told just to sit and endure. Turner was first accused of sexual assault in October 2018. Dallas told police she was raped and beaten by Turner while she was intoxicated. Now, that's another connection with him and Brock Turner, because the woman he violated was also intoxicated too. And the only reason he stopped is because two guys caught him behind the dumpster and scared him off. Otherwise, who knows how much further that would have went. I wonder how long he was out there. Dallas attended a party in Bamberg County. She was brought home from the party heavily intoxicated and would ultimately be found to be sexually assaulted later that night. She made the difficult decision to move forward with the case, all the while knowing, because of who her alleged attacker was, she would be a target of personal attacks and insults in the community. I could fully accept whatever outcome was decided if I felt and fully believed all families were well represented by the solicitor's office and they truly did the best job they could. This is indeed a very bad day for victims in our state. First-degree sexual assault and aggravated force charges brought against Turner in 2018 in connection to Stoll's claims were dropped by Second Circuit Deputy Solicitor David Miller earlier this year, following her death in November. Shortly after Stoll's attack, Turner, then 16, assaulted Chloe Best as she walked outside of a pawn house party at 3 a.m. Best told police that Turner pulled her behind a truck and put her on the ground. He then exposed her underwear and forced himself on her, she claimed. Court documents show that Turner was on bond at the time he attacked Best and proceeded to violate his house arrest over 50 times in the aftermath of her allegations. A third victim's sexual assault claims were dismissed by the state. We have experienced a catastrophic failure of the system and it impacts my family daily, Chloe Best's father, Reverend Darren Best, said. The family has since moved out of state to lessen the impact of the criminal proceedings in their lives. Meanwhile, Stoller's family has alleged that Turner's sentencing is the result of a conflict of interest. Turner's father, Walt Turner, is an investigator for the South Carolina Solicitor's First Circuit Solicitor. Excuse me. And I'm glad they mentioned that it was a conflict of interest, because it is. He should not have any attachments to this or any ways in with this, because he knows people. They are all connected. That's how they were able to get him off, all through their connections. The older Turner recused himself and the investigation was handed to Miller. Turner is being represented by South Carolina State Senator Brad Hutto. In 2019, or is Hutto, I'm not sure. In 2019, Brad made distasteful comments about the victims, implying at least one of them had consensual sex with Turner and later regretted it. Well, guess what? You just had sex on the ground with a boy you didn't really know, and you got up and you feel ashamed, you feel regret. That's not rape. That's a very extreme comment to make, and you had the nerve to be representing. Man, I keep telling y'all, PC is something else. And these are the people that's supposed to be the leaders of the world, right? Not far removed from their ancestors. And I'm not talking about going back to chattel slavery. I'm talking about going back to them barbarian days. She did not object. She did not scratch. She did not push. She did not call out. When asked point blank if she said no, she didn't. When asked point blank if she said stop, she didn't. The victim's lawyer, Sarah Ford, has since filed motions to appeal Turner's sentence. Now, I've read all of that, and I'm sure that everybody who's listening to this right now at the sound of my voice is like, that's a lot to digest. That's a lot of white privilege to digest all in one sitting. And I'm only 13 minutes and some change into the video. What I wanted to say was this. Y'all just got a first-hand glimpse, if you never saw it before, heard it before, of how PC gets on code against other PC people. People think that, oh, they just get on code against us. We know they get on code against us. But many people, like I said in the beginning, do not understand the magnitude of how deep their code goes, to the point where they will throw their own way, and I do mean way, under the bus. I'm talking about under the carriage. And when it comes to getting people like this off, and you see all the connections he's had, his dad's a DA. So he has a lot of pull to do this for his son, and they know he's a sick individual. He's 19. They said he first started committing these acts when he was 16. Like, y'all heard everything. I don't have to reiterate what y'all just heard. What got me too was the fact that he broke his house arrest he made 50 violations on his house arrest bond, meaning he was not supposed to go far. But here you have this guy, he over crossing state lines and all kinds of other things he isn't supposed to be doing, and he still walked. I don't want to hear not one PC person tell me that white privilege is not real. You got a glimpse of it right here, and the thing is, you've gotten glimpses of cases like this in the past. Him and Brock Turner are one and the same, but I think he got a bigger slap on the wrist because at least Brock Turner did do some time in jail, even though it was 3 measly months. He did get some time. This guy got nothing, and he doesn't have to register as a sex offender. Keep in mind, he violated 3 different women. One of them died suddenly. I'm trying to figure out how that happened. The other one, they didn't even bring her case forward. And the other one, they just basically were brought in court to be embarrassed. Oh, PC, y'all got it made in this. Y'all got it made in this establishment. If y'all can't flex your privilege like this guy did, then you are a failed white person.